And because this is the first time we get to have the joy of having multiple panelists talk to us about failure, what we're going to be doing for kind of like the intro, the warm-up here, is talk to all three of you about the types of clients that you work with and types of failures that you help people with. Because, I mean, everyone fails. I mean, would you agree? Have you met people who just don't fail? Like, is that a thing?
No.
No, they're all shaking their heads.
No.
Yeah. Everyone's a failure. Failure is inevitable. But each one of you work with a unique client group. You work with, unique methodology, new approaches. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk to each one of you a little bit about how you're helping clients around failure. So let's start with James. Hey, James, what's up?
Hey, what's up?
So why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of like what you do, who you tend to coach, and then let's talk a little bit about failure.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I am a certified high performance coach. I've got a very effective and structured framework that I utilize when I work with clients, and I work with clients on a one-on-one basis. I do group masterminds, and which are they approach these frameworks from different perspectives. One is much more intense and targeted, and another is very much more collaborative, where people tend to learn more in certain social situations. Social learning, really kind of advanced learning, is my philosophy for that. So that's what I work in and what I do. The types of clients that I have runs the gamut. I mean, I work with senior executives. I've worked with students. In my mastermind, I've got a cross section of artists, C-suite, and
you're an artist too, aren't you? You're a musician?
Yes, I am.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I love music.
Yeah. What type of instrument do you play?
I play guitar and harmonica, and I sing, and I've got a Americana band that we gig around in North Shore, Massachusetts, called the Blue Honey Drops. And so, yeah, that's that's a lot of fun, and that's a lot of fun. And and it's a refuge from the multiple failures that I experienced. That's a really important. I mean, this is fascinating subject, because it's who wants to talk about their failures and how do you overcome. I look at it from a completely different perspective. It's really about understanding what is the message behind the failure and what it is that you can do to learn from that particular experience. I remember when I first started, so I'm an engineer by education. I've spent a lot of my years in Silicon Valley, and I remember basically the story was that if you are an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, you really don't have any street cred unless you've had a failure, unless you failed at a startup. And it's really it's kind of the cauldron that real learning is forged, I've found. And so and all of my clients, and they have failures from a personal standpoint with regards to their relationships. They have failures relative to their work. They have personal failures about how they fail themselves. And with all of these, there's opportunity for growth, and that's the perspective that I like to look at it from.
Nice.
Love that. That's why Dan and I started this podcast, is because we both have lots of personal and professional failures that we decided, hey, maybe we're not alone in this. So that's what we try to do, is normalize it, because there is a different perspective. And I can imagine as coaches, you help people work to kind of come out of the valley of the failure to the peak of it. So
yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, James.
And so you mentioned Silicon Valley, and Kate, you actually work with, or you've worked in the Silicon Valley and worked with Silicon Valley, professionals. So, I mean, the first thing is, what do you do, and who do you tend to work with? So let's start there.
Thank you. Yes, I'm an executive coach. I do organizational consulting, and I do culture transformation. So my clients really run the gamut as well, from like the seed to every type of series to the Fortune 100. I mostly work with executive teams and individuals on the executive teams. And basically what I care most about is them being the best type of leader that's important to them, right? Like what resonates with them. And so I will first say, which may drive you nuts, Dan and Alicia, that actually failure is not in my lexicon, nor do I bring it up in my practice. So from my background in positive organizational psychology, right, I'm always looking at reframing. So I'm always curious, like, what did you learn? How do we move forward? Leveraging Carol Dweck's growth mindset, right? It's like, if you learn something from the situation, how could it possibly be bad, right? Like, failure has such a negative connotation. So there's things like safe to try, safe to like not hit the mark, and also around expectation setting. So it's important to like not shame your clients in creating the safe space. It needs to be okay to be in a place where you can just like sit with it and observe it and learn. So I just try to keep, my coaching practice when it comes to that really neutral. And I mean, the areas where they miss can be exactly as James said. It could be interpersonal dynamics. It can be losing a client. It can be losing a contract. It can be embarrassing themselves, right? And so, coaching is a really vulnerable space. And so it's really having to honor that and create a place where they can kind of safely move around in that.
Interesting.
Love the reframing. I mean, of course, a positive psychologist is going to say that. So I love it. But no, I hear you. And I think, reframing is so important. So how do we normalize failure by turning it into not this, like, even the word itself is like, gives you the heebie-jeebies, but reframing it and letting them kind of talk about it. And just like you did this, I forgot the words you used, but essentially calling it something different, like a safe risk or whatever it is, to change their mindset about it. Very cool. Love that.
Well, you dropped the money word lexicon, and I want to turn it over to our communications coach, Maya. So, I mean, what's a communications coach? Who do you tend to work with?
So I'm a communications coach that works with leaders and with rising stars on bringing out the best in themselves at work. So that means that my primary niche is working with women who are stepping into new leadership positions. So that could be women who are CEOs or in C-suite, or that they're new managers and this is their first experience in a leadership role where they are supervising either people or processes. And it's funny being the third to go in this kind of a thing, because I put a little check mark around next to the word learn when James started speaking, and he referenced already that failures are opportunities to learn. And I put another check mark next to growth mindset when Kate said it, because Carol Dweck is one of my heroes as well. And it seems like we all come from a similar school of thought. I was trained as an Adlerian coach. Alfred Adler is the basis of positive psychology and of CBT and of different educational theories in that area. And so it certainly resonates what James and Kate have shared. I'll bring in the gender aspect to this and share from my own experience and from people who have written and studied the different ways in which girls and boys, or men and women, respond to failure. That I can say from my own experience and having come into this work that I was very scared of failing growing up, and I see that among a lot of my my clients are high performing, fabulous, brilliant women. Among the individual clients and the groups, I also work with men in management teams and whatever it might be, and we were socialized that failure equals doom, right? That it was a binary thing. And I would say that one of the main things beyond the areas that James and Kate have shared that I really help my clients work through are seeing other options. And maybe this connects to the reframing that Kate was talking about, but being able to see that it's not just black and white, it's not either or. This is also kind of Carol Dweck kind of stuff of, it's not just there are more than those two options, and to help my clients see what are not just the other ways to be able to understand the situation, but that there are many ways of responding to the situation as well that's at hand. And yes, we should all learn, and every opportunity should be a learning opportunity, but also sometimes our first instinct is not the right one, and it's worth pausing and thinking through a few different ways to take the next step. My coaching practice is very forward looking and very practical in that sense. If we do the deeper dive of understanding something new about the person, about the client who I'm working with, but then being able to translate it into action means let's normalize this conversation and be able to talk through it and see as an opportunity for learning, but also to be able to then speak it or articulate it in different ways, to be able to bring different people into the conversation, ask different kinds of questions, offer other people encouragement exactly in the points when we need it as well.
Definitely. Love that.
And give snaps to that.
Love that. I love that you mentioned, how you encourage your clients and you're forward thinking in your coaching practice. I remember at one point I was teaching facilitating a workshop around, I think, performance management. And we started reframing, Kate, the word feedback to feed forward, because the whole goal of it is to use it to be better and to take it and move forward. So I don't know who came up with the feedback.
Marshall Goldsmith came up with feed forward. He's fabulous. Everyone should also read How Women Rise and What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Yeah.
Oh, I know the communications coach is going to be giving us some recommendations and books and all that kind of stuff. So thank you for that. Yeah, awesome.